It's 9:16 a.m. here in Paris. It's time now for a quick update of the latest business news. And Yuka Royer from our business desk is with us here in the studio. Yuka, starting with next week's World Economic Forum. And some key world leaders are announcing that they're skipping that event in Davos.
Well, Thomas, the US President Donald Trump has decided that not only himself, but the whole US delegation will be away from that conference. That's not the only major absence from the annual business summit, which comes at a time of mounting economic uncertainty. Cole Stangler reports.
Grappling with the longest shutdown of the U.S. federal government in history, President Donald Trump had already planned to skip next week's World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. Now, the White House says the U.S. won't be sending a delegation at all.
Out of consideration for the 800,000 great American workers not receiving pay, and to ensure his team can assist as needed, President Trump has canceled his delegation's trip to the World Economic Forum in Davos.
Trump's not the only world leader set to skip the annual powwow to deal with domestic issues. Emmanuel Macron, who this week kicked off a national debate aimed at quelling France's Yellow Vest protest movement, will be staying home. So will British Prime Minister Theresa May, reeling from Parliament's rejection of her proposed Brexit deal.
It is clear that the House does not support this deal.
A gloomy backdrop for a conference already marked by economic uncertainty, from worries over trade disputes to fears of a global slowdown.
We see everybody absorbed by crisis management. Where do we look still at the future? We want to be more opportunity-oriented and not necessarily talking about the present crisis by which the political world is absorbed.
Some 3,000 people are still expected to gather in Davos next week. Among the issues on the docket, technological innovation, climate change, and growing trade frictions.
Turning now to global markets, stocks rising on hopes that trade tensions between the US and China may be easing soon, after the Wall Street Journal reported that the US government was considering lifting some or all of tariffs imposed on Chinese imports to calm markets. The newspaper said that Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin had proposed ratcheting back the punitive tariffs to give Beijing an incentive to make deeper concessions and reach a deal. The US and China are set for another round of talks on January the 30th. Now, here in Europe, major markets opened comfortably in the green off the back of the news. Across the board, as you can see, London's FTSE and Paris's CAC 40, Frankfurt's DAX, all above at 0.7%. And earlier in Asia, major markets saw strong gains, with Japanese and Chinese shares rising well above the 1% mark, as you can see there. Some more of the business stories that we're covering at this hour. And Tesla is recalling more than 14,000 cars in China due to faulty airbags. The measure applies to Model S cars made between 2014 and 2016 and comes on top of an earlier recall for some older cars equipped with Takata airbags. The Japanese supplier went bankrupt in 2017 after its airbags were blamed for a number of deaths. A US federal grand jury has indicted 4 more managers at Audi in connection with the Dieselgate emissions cheating scandal. Audi is a luxury unit of German carmaker Volkswagen. Volkswagen admitted in 2015 to secretly installing software in nearly 500,000 cars in the US to evade government emissions tests, and pleaded guilty in 2017 to felony charges. One Audi manager had already been indicted. Nissan and Mitsubishi Motors say that Carlos Ghosn improperly received nearly €8 million in compensation from a joint venture between the two firms. This without discussing